A very special guest is joining us for this presentation. Mr. Masood Malik, Joint Managing Director, Ramke Enviro Engineers Limited, REEL. Please give him a big round of applause. Mr. Masood Malik, Joint Managing Director, Ramke Enviro Engineers Limited. He would be sharing his views on EPR in true circularity.
We just crossed into the afternoon. A very good afternoon, everyone. Very good afternoon. It is such a pleasure and such a privilege to be here today. And I would like all of you to just take a moment to look around and acknowledge ourselves in a moment of congratulations. Because what we do, all of you, has never been more important, has never been more relevant. I'm here representing Ramke Enviro and in the capacity of an environmental student. I don't really have any of the credentials that the previous speakers had, either academic or professional. The only claim to fame that I can credibly say is that I've probably made more mistakes in the environmental and the recycling field than most people in this country, and I've probably lost more money in the environmental and the waste management recycling field than most people in this country. But in spite of that, I'm here representing the largest ever FDI in the environmental space in India. I'm also representing on the back of that investment the first unicorn in the recycling space in India. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll repeat once again, what we do has never been more important. And they say that, you know, there is a time for every idea. And when it comes to waste management, recycling, and especially resource recovery, our time has come. And I say this on behalf of the 20,000 full-time employees who I'm lucky to be able to call as colleagues, who are working every day around the world to make this world a little more sustainable. A long, long way to go. But let's talk a little bit about this. So this is the organization I was talking about, Ramke Enviro. We're up to about 7 million tons, believe it or not, per annum. Yeah, across various categories, serving 35,000 customers and more than 20,000 employees now. And hand on heart, I can tell you, we're not even scratching the surface. The magnitude of the problem, and therefore, as my previous speakers and respected panel members said, the magnitude of the opportunity is so significant, is so big. 85 facilities already operating, and we've gone global. So not just in Asia or Middle East, we've made our first acquisition and a major presence in North America in the marine waste space. Today, if you are in the waste management space and if you have to solve big problems, then marine waste is something that you cannot be ignored. Allow me to take my mask off. I think it will be easier for me to speak loudly, and maybe you can hear me better. But what's more important is what this means for all of us. We are just an example. And my idea of coming here today and sharing some experiences and learnings with all of you is on the back of this big opportunity, this big challenge that we were talking about. We thought that, is it possible to really do this at scale in a commercially viable manner? And like we said, of the 7 million tons that we're doing, about 6 million tons is municipal solid waste. We are trying. The vision of this investment, the vision of this journey is to move from a leading waste management player, and everyone knows Ramki as a waste management player, to being a true circular economy player. I'll share where we are on that journey. Again, like I said, long way to go. But the growth in the last 2 years has been just exemplary. Now, in spite of COVID, the fact is we have never deployed more capital or commissioned more facilities than we have done in the last 2 years. Again, no credit to the organization, I would say, but this is the sectoral need. This is the scale of the opportunity. We're already the largest integrated recycler, handling over 9 million tons across various categories, 44 megawatts of green energy coming from waste, and locations wherever you would look at, operating locations already. Now, this circular economy, we all talk about what does it mean, really. This slide actually tries to articulate that. And you can see there are various loops of circularity. There's no one model of circularity, right? We all talked about, ma'am talked about 9 hours becoming 10 hours. Absolutely right, ma'am. And we are trying to leverage each one of them. And I don't think there is one answer. People talk about, is this the silver bullet? There is no silver bullet. I think depending on the feedstock, depending on the location, depending on the scale, the solutions are different. And they have to be customized. And this is one big learning that we have. So the learnings from running India's largest waste-to-energy plant right here in Delhi, 24 megawatts in Bhavana in North Delhi, the largest plastics recycling facilities, the first, and I'll talk a little more about this, artificial intelligence-based MRF in the world, actually. And that's we have commissioned it last year in Dubai. The GCC's first marine waste recycling facility in Oman. And we are obviously operating a marine waste recycling facility in North America as well. The largest installed CND recycling facilities, right from Noida, which is a 500 tons per day unit, down to Kolkata, which is 1,500 tons per day, down south to Vizag and Hyderabad, where there are 1,000 tons per day of CND waste recycling. RDF, compost, EPR services, the first, precious metals refinery where it is, lots of facilities are there to recycle electronic waste. There are lots of luminaries here in that field. We are learning from all of you. We're trying to follow your footsteps. And what we are trying to do is integrate. So you put in electronic waste at one end, and you actually get out small bars of gold, silver, palladium, platinum, copper on the other end. Single facility. That's about to be commissioned in Hyderabad. A pan-India's network of ELV facilities, end-of-life vehicle recycling facilities. The first one, which is coming up near Mumbai, the second one in Hyderabad, the third one in Delhi. 26 such facilities coming up all over India. This is the journey that we are on. Once again, I repeat, not even scratching the surface. I wish we had more hands and more heads. I wish we had more partners. I wish this room was 10 times bigger and it was overflowing with people. Because that is really the level of scale that is required to address the waste management resource recovery problem. Talking about plastics for a second, I will not repeat what has already been said. And I know that I stand between you and the tea break. So very quickly, we know that 10 tons is produced every second. Yeah? It's 4% of the fossil fuel production. It's 6% of all carbon emissions in the world. And since 1950, about 80% of all plastics has ended up in landfills. About 80%. And is this becoming smaller? No. The fact is, in terms of world production, plastics production has doubled in the last 20 years. Just doubled. And it will continue to grow because our plastics consumption per capita is a third of other larger Asian economies like China, a fifth of what we have in the developed world. And as income goes up, as we saw during the pandemic, different consumption patterns changed. And per capita plastic waste generation just went through the roof. Already Asia is 50% of plastic consumption already. And therefore, big problems need big solutions. Now, looking at where does this concept come from, the EPR sort of revolution, it is not a very old concept. It's only in the 90s that Europe adopted this. If you look at Air Act or air laws as a category, they first started globally in the 60s. India got it in the 1980s, in 81. The gap between the rest of the world and developing economies is shrinking. And therefore, we are already right in the middle of having this discussion, while this is not such an old concept globally. And very, very simply, I keep going back to these basic principles. What does EPR mean? What does extended producer responsibility truly mean? It has three dimensions. The first is economic responsibility. For a producer, for a brand owner, you are profiting from a product, take economic responsibility for the consequences of your product. If you profit from it, you pay for it, right? Polluter pays. One of the basic principles of law. Physical responsibility. You cannot just pay for it and make it go away. You have the ability, the network, the reverse logistics, the reach to physically handle it as well. So you, together with your partners, manage it also. And the last, and probably the most important, is informative responsibility. What does that mean? It means you know your packaging material, you know the plastics the best. Why? You've been dealing with it so long. You're polymer specialists. It's your formula. It is your compound. It is your extrusion. You understand the nuances. You tell the world how to manage it. And this, in essence, is the heart and soul of all regulations around the world. Whether it is this Gazette notification that came in yesterday, the draft Gazette notification, the one came a couple of years back. Heart and soul is economic responsibility, physical responsibility, and informative responsibility. And you will see all three of them in all the regulations, whether they're European regulations or Indian regulations or Australian regulations. And in our case, the recent one was 2021. I'll just quickly summarize. I had an opportunity to look at the draft Gazette notification. To answer the question, does it come into effect today? No, it doesn't. There's no ambiguity on this. What you see as, comes into effect with immediate, that is the draft. The day the draft becomes notified, the same sentence will remain there. A draft, the sentence will not change. The draft, it comes into effect, is just the language of any Gazette notification. So any draft Gazette notification, draft Gazette, you will see the same language. 60 days are there for us to engage. We were party to the development of the draft, and we will engage. I'm sure all of you will also engage with the government over the next 60 days to evolve this and improve this and clarify this further. Very simple. It divides plastics into three categories: the rigid, flexible, and MLP. Targets will be along these three categories. I think a lot of the clarifications and information about this draft has already been given. I'll touch upon some additional ones. Credit buying is allowed in the same category. So you cannot cross-buy credits. Selling of credits also along the same category, but offset is permitted for your own targets, or you can actually offset your future waste generation as well. So for a year in advance. All the producer and brand owners' action plans will be collated by the state pollution control boards and filed with the CPCB portal. So that responsibility is with the SPCB. So in every state, the action plans will be collected by the SPCBs. The reuse of plastics is mandatory up to a particular percentage. We talked about that. The use of recycled material in products is also mandatory now up to a particular product. Huge implications of this. Huge implications. And what's very, very interesting is pre-consumer plastic waste has also been added to the EPR regime, not just post-consumer. This was a gray area. Now this has been clarified. Pre-consumer plastic waste is also part of the EPR regime. So that was the quick summary of where we are. Now you know that for it to succeed, this whole ecosystem to succeed, this ecosystem has many, many elements. I mean, obviously the producers and the brand owners, consumers, the informal sector, extremely, extremely important. Extremely important partners, especially in the segregation and the aggregation chain. Urban local bodies, the waste management agencies. So you will see it's not a straightforward thing. It is not one person who can solve this and make it work. I cannot stand up here and say, oh, I'm already handling 7 million tons of waste this year. And out of that, more than 500,000 tons is just plastics. So I've got it, yeah. No, none of us have. It's an ecosystem of partners. Now the question is, to what extent does this truly enable, the theme of my discussion today was true enablement of circular economy. I mean, is this another way of greenwashing? Or is it true enablement? And I think a lot of the questions have already been answered. I think beautiful comments came out today. It is viability gap funding. It is actually a form of polluter pays, in effect. But the fact is, the scale of the problem, whether in developed economies like this is North America, by the way, mountains of plastic waste being shipped from the point of generation to the point of disposal. Because that has been the past of waste management. Out of sight is out of mind. सबको waste manage करना है. आपको चाहिए अपने घर के सामने, किसी को नहीं चाहिए. आपको चाहिए waste management facility, recycling facility आपके घर के सामने, नहीं, वो भी नहीं चाहिए. Manage it, but not in my backyard. Take it somewhere far away. Yeah? This is what is happening in the West as well. They ship it to different parts of the country and different parts of the world. And the same thing with India. This is one of India's most innovative cities. That's a live picture from them. I'll not name the city. Yeah? Fact is, hand on heart, in the name of waste management, there's still so many practices that are happening that are not truly sustainable. And if we are honest with ourselves, we all know what they are. But what is the potential of this new notification? What can EPR truly do? On the infrastructure side, on the supporting policy side, on the regulatory architecture side, on the operational mechanisms, and as an ecosystem catalyst. And I think it is that last which is so important. I think we all come from a history of waste management, or many of us here. We know that what was acceptable yesterday is no longer acceptable. And that means change is required. And change is required at scale, which means you need a catalyst. And I think that's all this, that's what EPR truly represents. It's a catalyst for change. What we are trying, let me just share some learnings with you. For us, EPR means our MRFs. And depending on where, what feedstock, what volumes, what quality, we have our own waste-to-energy plants. We have a very interesting circularity experiment going on at scale in Delhi. We said from our Delhi RDF to power facility, can we make it truly zero to landfill? आसान नहीं है. Again, दिल पे हाथ रख के बोलेंगे, आसान नहीं है. But I will invite you to come and visit our facility in North Delhi, that 24 megawatt power plant. It has the first bottom ash recycling facility where even the ash that is coming out of the power plant is being made into paver blocks and tiles. That is the first such facility which is handling more than 2,000 tons per day. 2,000 tons per day with zero to landfill. The lower chain, we have multiple plastic recycling facilities where the economics are making sense. We say no to waste to energy. Yeah? Where there is a value to upcycle or recover higher value from the waste, we are actually making granules. We are one of the largest manufacturers of garbage bags in India. Why? Because for our own consumption and for our biomedical business, we need lots of color-coded bags. We manufacture all of that from our recycled plastics also, which I think is very, very circular, because our waste is getting made into our products, which are going back. We are collecting waste in it and bringing it back. And it's a virtuous cycle. We are also making paver blocks and tiles. I think somebody talked about the fact that it's not just, it's not just the granules and flakes and back into products. Even through some other form of pre-processing, you can take the plastic waste into construction material. You don't necessarily need to take it through the granulation and the compounding and then a master batch and extrusion and then back into a product. Other forms are also available. We're trying that. This middle piece is what we are working on right now, which is the pyrolysis and the pyrolysis oil and fuel. And we are working on two streams here. We are working on pyrolysis to heavy fuel and light fuel. We have two such projects going on with collaboration from partners. One Indian technology innovator and one a foreign technology provider. Again, the problem with pyrolysis, the problem with plastics to fuel is it works in a small scale. Lab में, demonstration plant में हमेशा viable हो जाता है. जब scale up करते हैं, it breaks down. And we have seen this in Nagpur, we have seen this in Chandigarh, we have seen this everywhere. And we have lost a lot of money in those trials. No problem. We'll keep doing it till it works. We are also trying plastics to gas. Because we are seeing whether some feedstock is more amenable to direct gas and then gas to energy as opposed to liquid fuel. And a lot of people ask us that, is waste to energy truly sustainable? Well, I mean, the alternative is power generation using coal and waste going to landfill. Trust me, it is many, many more times sustainable in terms of carbon emissions, in terms of life cycle cost. Our waste energy facilities, we are benchmarking to the best in the world. You can see they are not supposed to look like power plants. We want them to look like IT facilities. All of them do. State-of-the-art, command and control centers, etc. Similarly, facilities. This is that facility that I talked about. Will I build this facility in India? No. It is our waste, our feedstock is not ready for this technology. This is a place where there is no human being working. This MRF handles 1,600 tons per day in Dubai. And there is no human intervention. This facility has artificial intelligence, which means the more waste you put through it, the better it learns. And in addition to all the traditional technologies, optical, NIR, EDI, other forms of spectral imaging, etc., and robotics, it is this learning by itself, saying that actually, this is PVC, yeah, because the more it handles, the better it learns. No, like I said, will I construct this facility in India the same way? No. I think we heard from a previous speaker, the needs of India and the strengths of India are different. And I will talk about this in my concluding comments in exactly 2 minutes. We are trying to go world class. This was to show, in fact, the whole world, that an Indian company kar sakti hai. ये perception है, Finland से technology लाओ तो चलेगा. एक इंडियन कंपनी भी कर सकती है और ऐसी कर सकती है कि people can stand and watch. But technology not just for segregation, technology also extremely important for traceability. Technology is extremely important for assurance. This is really where, if you ask me, what is the weakest link in EPR? This, traceability. And that is really where ethical sourcing, that is really where closing the data loop, that is really where use of IoT and digital, and that is where, and what we have decided as an organization, I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what business value it makes. You first have to create credibility. As we have seen in the carbon market, let us not make the same mistakes, ladies and gentlemen. Indian CERs versus the rest of the world CERs. Indian CERs used to trade at lower value. क्यों? कार्बन अलग है यहाँ पे, इसका फॉर्मूला अलग है क्या? नहीं. ट्रस्ट का फैक्टर नहीं था. इंडिया के CDM प्रोजेक्ट्स के अंदर it was alleged that additionality is artificial. We have to make sure that our plastic credits do not suffer the same fate. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, happy to show, this is called ReLoop. Reel is the name of the company, Loop is circular. So this is our platform, digital platform for aggregation and traceability. And I'm happy to say it's blockchain based. ब्लॉकचेन बेस्ड मतलब मैं भी नहीं कर सकता टैंपर अगर करना चाहूं, दरवाजा ही बंद कर दो, एक भी दरवाजा खोल के रखेंगे तो कुछ ना कुछ गड़बड़ होगा. This is the attempt. In a few years' time, I'll come and tell you the results. But the EPR network that we are trying to build is pan-India. What we are trying to do is integrate. So with our partners, collect everywhere, even where we don't have our own operations. Our own operations are in something like 25, 30 cities. But where we don't have our own operations, we have a huge number of partners. Our own recycling facilities, because I can control them. I can provide assurance. And then, obviously, for co-processing, what we cannot handle, we have a number of industry partners. Like I talked about, traceability and transparency, extremely important. This is where technology comes into play. And some learnings over the last couple of years, trying to take this business and trying to double it in 3 years. That's really our vision. Take this business, double it in 3 years. On the base that we have, Ramki's base is not small. It's a very large base, and doubling in 3 years. But that's the journey that we are on. Segregation, I think a learned speaker talked about that before. It is humongously expensive to segregate. So segregation at source as an enabler for plastics recycling is extremely important. In the aggregation chain, social inclusion. If we do not take the informal sector into confidence, and we have made that mistakes in the past, your aggregation chain will fail. It is also an opportunity to create the right kind of social impact and right kind of partnerships. Trust me, in cities where our aggregation model has true social inclusion, where people are using, our iCards with a lot of pride, we have the best quality coming out. Recycling, kuch bhi recycling kar lijiye, it is not a cottage industry. A great way to lose money is to do small recycling. Recycling requires scale because margins are so thin. Capital cost is high, operating cost is high, capital cycles are there. If you do small volumes, it's a great way to die. And therefore, the ecosystem of integration. If we cannot recycle at scale alone, we get partners along with us. So partnerships, all of you. The right level of value add. What do I mean by that? Life cycle approach. Somebody said, please keep in mind the carbon emissions of transporting it so much. आप कहाँ लेके जा रहे हैं इसको? Life cycle approach में आप देखिए, how much value add is the optimum level of value add? Do I put it into the oil route? Do I take it into the waste to energy route? Do I take it into granules route? And look at the economics, but also look at the environmental footprint of that decision making. Localization. If you try to import technology, आप टोमरा को बुला लीजिए और बोलिए भैया इंडिया में चल जाओ. Great way to lose money again. All of these mistakes we have made, we're sharing them with you. Localization of technology is extremely important. Innovation does not only mean high-tech. Some of the best innovation that we have had in the last 2 years, the last 2 or 3 years, is low-tech. So low-tech innovation. Compaction कैसे करें? Manually. जहाँ power नहीं है, वहाँ compaction कैसे करें? Some of these issues are actually the biggest innovations. The IoT, digital, and blockchain for traceability. I think extremely important. Hamare plastic credits have to be bulletproof. And finally, this sector requires access to capital. I'm standing here before you because I used to work for KKR. KKR invested in Ramki. Here I am. Access to capital. But the condition for that is no greenwashing. If there is greenwashing in this sector, if people, sell fake credits, if the credibility breaks down, there'll be no access to capital. Let me tell you. And this sector requires billions and billions of dollars of investment. This sector has the ability to create hundreds of unicorns. Today there's only one. I wish there'll be 10 more the next time we meet. And many more such stories. I look forward to working with you, learning from you in this journey. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So there are a couple of questions. First question is the plastic production is dependable on consumption of petroleum products? Yes. A significant part of plastics is is of petroleum origin. All the monomers are petrochemicals, which means the fossil fuel economy and plastics are very, very closely linked. Are there non-fossil fuel feedstock available for polymers? Yes. Why are they not in vogue? Why is most of my plastic fossil fuel based? Whether it is the vinyl chloride chain or whether it is the polyethylene chain, ये सारा का सारा fossil fuel based क्यों है? Economics. Till the time it is cheaper to make it from petroleum sources, it will be like that. Till that, when non-fossil fuel based polymers become economically viable, you will see more of them take up. Second question from Mukesh ji is, what is the meaning of pre-consumer plastic waste as part of EPR? Pre-consumer means the plastic waste that is generated before you and I buy that product and then take the wrapper and throw it somewhere. Yeah? Which means within, up to the value chain, production and distribution. Production and distribution before it goes into the consumer's hand. So it does not mean only your facility. That means manufacturing facility के अंदर जो plastic waste आया वो आपका pre-consumer है नहीं. Up to the consumer's hand, that is the pre-consumer waste. That is the definition of pre-consumer. That is now also part of EPR. Happy to take any other questions. Sir, such a privilege to see you. Namaskar.
Thank you. It's to listen your talk with great enthusiasm, compliments. Question is that, really not a question, a request, but you hinged upon the consumption of materials in your talk in a way, and you said that we are consuming a large material resource, which we are. We are going to be 15 billion tons by 2030. And the world touches about 200 billion metric tons, and Earth doesn't have the capacity to produce or consume as well. Are you, by chance, anyway, thinking into the solar recycling, which is a very nascent story in India? And mind you, all people sitting here are sitting on Bombay Stock Exchange, what Malik was saying, Masood was saying. You have Bombay Stock Exchange in your pockets. It's a huge, huge profit which is going to be on your side if we go into the way he was talking. So any chance into the solar applications, Ramki?
Yes.
I was sitting in a conference where your name emerged, and that's the compliment I thought I must say openly, is that the person who was organizing it, he said, I want Masood to be there. I said, I don't know him, but now I know you.
Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, lots of mistakes, sir. And lots of learnings along the way. To answer your question on solar, I think that's a fantastic issue. How do you reduce the cost, environmental cost, and economic cost of recycling? And that's really where alternate energy and green energy comes in. You have to look at the overall carbon footprint and water footprint, and therefore the environmental footprint of what you're doing. If you are recovering resources from waste number A to resource A, who are you competing with? You are competing with virgin material. Therefore, your cost of conversion, both environmental as well as economic, has to be lower. Solar is one of the true enablers there. Sir, I can tell you two examples. One, we are implementing solar as a secondary source of power across 33 locations in India. Megawatt scale across 33 locations in India. Why? Because today, that decision was so easy. Lots of my decisions when I go to the board, झगड़ा होता है. कहता है margin नहीं है, तू कहता है 5 साल के बाद पैसे बनाएंगे, कर क्या रहा है यार तू वगैरह वगैरह. Solar, instant approval. Why? The policies are there, my friends. Today, especially with the OPEX model, especially with so many of our friends going in for capital efficient implementation models for solar rooftop. Please look at solar as a supplementary power source. The fact is, even where I have my own power generation, Delhi, Hyderabad, where I'm generating power at scale, 24 megawatt के plants हैं, वहाँ पे मैं 2 megawatt solar ऊपर से डाल रहा हूँ. So I think it is extremely important that we harness that opportunity. It will actually add a percent and a half to your IRR. But let me tell you, Beyond that percent and a half to your IRR, what it does, your access to capital becomes easier because that story becomes more complete. I'll give you a very, very interesting example. Before I came into this organization and I was in a different life, I was working on a concept which everyone said, pagal ho gaya hai. This is about 5 years ago. We said we will make wind power offshore, floating wind power. In certain regions where their offshore wind velocities are very, very high, और उसमें variability नहीं होती. जैसे onshore, on land, mainland में wind velocities change होती रहती हैं. Offshore, there are areas where wind velocity is very, very consistent. Direction is also very consistent. So offshore wind power generate करेंगे और sea water से hydrogen बनाएंगे उस power को use करके. Everyone laughed. Yeah. For 5 years, I pushed that concept. The first such facility going live off the shore of Ireland in June this year. Offshore wind, converting, generating power from wind, taking seawater, using that energy to electrolyze seawater to produce hydrogen. So this is green hydrogen. Yeah. Correct. A question from Sushil Ranjanji, is your industry looking at end-of-life cable recycling from plastics? Yes. In fact, we have a significant facility to manage cables in our e-waste business, where, and that's why I said integration. When you look at one type of feedstock, another type of feedstock, our municipal business supports our electronics business. Our electronics business also supports our industrial business and each other. So cable stripping is a component of e-waste recycling, but the sheets that come out of there go directly into plastics recycling. So having this ecosystem, and like I said, zaruri nahi hai ki sab kuch in-house ho. I mean, there's so many people here. I'm sure you have ideas. You have the willingness to be a part of this ecosystem. Let us work together. So yes, to answer your question, end-of-life cable recycling is an integrated element because a significant part of the weight is in plastics, the value is in copper.
Mr. Masood, I have one very important question which Mr. Sodhi has discussed.
Sir, before you start, sir, such a pleasure to meet you.
No, it's pleasure of mine also, pleasure of mine. I would like to say one thing, that the solar panels, which will be in huge quantity after 5 years down the line, who will be taking care of that? Is Ramki ready for solar recycling?
Absolutely.
And B, as far as the hydrogen is concerned, I would like to tell you, in 1994, the company called Asahi Kasai of Japan, they are the largest electrolyzers producers, and the membranes which they are producing to produce sodium hydroxide and chlorine. They had a very innovative system, which you have just touched upon. They were withdrawing the water from the sea and using as a brine for their feed stock into producing the caustic soda and producing the hydrogen out of that. That was the best system they had, and there was no waste coming out of it. So the people have systems for producing hydrogen. As I also touched upon, the hydrogen in Australia and in the Germany, there is a prototype system taking out the hydrogen from the algae, which is coming up very fast. So we have to think how to liquefy the hydrogen, which is the next step we should take care.
Absolutely.
Once we are able to do the liquefaction of hydrogen, which only Russia has the technology, our problem of solar and other things can be to greater extent resolved. And it will be a greenest energy. So this is my point, that yes, the people are going for innovation and they are trying to do the things. But the solar panels will be a biggest problem after 5 years, and we have to think now.
You're absolutely right, sir.
Thank you very much.
In all of these challenges, ladies and gentlemen, lies the opportunity. People are talking about lithium-ion batteries. Actually, that's a misnomer. ज़रूरी नहीं है कि जो batteries कल आएंगी वो lithium based होंगी. Batteries होंगी, लेकिन lithium based होंगी कि नहीं वो समय बताएगा. Panel chemistry is also changing. We are talking about different types of panels. Every panel, 10 साल पुराने panel की जो recycling technology थी, वो आज के date में जो ज़्यादा flexible panels आ गए हैं वो नहीं apply होती है. So watching this space extremely important. We will have capability for both panel recycling and battery recycling in-house. We already have capability in some of the related spaces. But what is required is feedstock at scale. Now, let me also share with you what our understanding is. Our understanding is, like ELV, there will be a time when ये सारा का सारा एक साथ आएगा. क्यों? क्योंकि life cycle जो होती है, there is a time when suddenly there was a revolution in number of cars being sold, right? From X numbers, it became 10X over a period of 3 to 5 years. Similarly, in solar, there was a time when solar grew like this, and then it inflected. So all of the panels that are getting installed at that period of time, in X number of years, whether it is 7 years or 10 years, they become end of life. Ek saath aayega. In anticipation of that feedstock, at least we are one silly company who's creating capacity. अब वो आएगा कि नहीं आएगा पता नहीं, but we are in anticipation of that feedstock, like for ELV, like for end of life of vehicles, similarly for solar, similarly for battery, we are creating capacity. But what can we do? What can one company do? You need, like I said, you need 10 Ramkis. And that is really where the opportunity is. Any other question?
And everyone is saying that we are reducing the virgin plastic and we change our tertiary packaging and secondary packaging through biodegradable plastic. But all we know that biodegradable plastic is not easily degraded. It's required a certain temperature. And when the biodegradable plastic is mixed with other type of plastic, it cannot be recycled and it cannot be decomposed. So in upcoming year, when the lots of biodegradable plastic coming in the market, so you have any planning for separate collection, any recycling facility for the biodegradable plastic? Because in current scenario in India, no infrastructure, no facility available for the biodegradable. Everyone is talking that I am using the biodegradable. But right now the biodegradable plastic is really recycled. It's only mixed with the other plastic. So have you any plan, any vision for that?
So right now the biodegradability is, so by the way, every plastic is biodegradable depending on the time scale. Yeah? 100 साल wait करने को तैयार है तो biodegrade हो जाएगा. The question is degree of biodegradability, and therefore, what is there is a curve associated with that, etc. To answer your question, it's a grade of plastics that we are currently picking up and segregating, which means we are interested in LDPE, which is white. Yeah, that is the level of segregation where we are at right now. So LDPE, low contamination, white. That is the feedstock that I have right now. I don't have the ability to, within that, go into whether this is, to what extent biodegradable. If the density is very different, and density can be very different for certain grades of biodegradable plastics, they are lower density, then I can sort it, because I have density separation equipment. But if the density is similar, then my spectral sorters, my optical sorters, my density sorters will not know the difference. और वो तीसरी आंख भगवान जी ने अभी तक दी नहीं कि मैं देख के बता दूं कि बॉस ये बायोडिग्रेडेबल है. लेकिन मैं आपके सामने एक दूसरा क्वेश्चन रखता हूं. मुझे ऐसा लगता है जिस दिन एक कॉन्सेप्ट somebody raised it, I think one of the speakers here, willingness to pay. The day you're willing to pay 10 paisa more for a biodegradable bag compared to a non-biodegradable bag, 10 paisa more. The day this hotel, somebody raised the key card, said 43% recycled. Great. Will you pay 500 rupees more per night for a hotel like this, which has, because of its environmental credentials? Will you, till the time one of us, and then more of us, and then more of us, develop willingness to pay a small amount of that tax that we need to pay, that environmental tax, it will never become mainstream, sir. Because biodegradable plastics today, as a percentage of total plastics consumption in India, मतलब राउंड ऑफ में दिखता है, राउंड ऑफ में है, तो मैं कैसे इसको सेग्रीगेट करने के लिए इक्विपमेंट लगाऊंगा? Maybe I'll think of a technology to do that, but it's not enough quantity. I think the willingness to pay issue will be the real differentiator. In Europe, certain countries, it is there. India, are we ready? I don't think we are there yet. Which is why we are putting the onus on government, on brands to support this. And through this journey, I'm sure we will come to a day where that little bit of extra we'll be willing to pay. For this toothbrush is made of biodegradable plastic. I'll pay 10 rupees more for it. I think the day that happens, even in the middle class of India, even in the urban centers of India, I'm telling you a revolution is there. So you're absolutely right. And degrades into what? And again, the whole issue of who decides that the breakdown products and the daughter products.
What are the breakdown products?
Exactly. Breakdown products की toxicity क्या है? Let me tell you, people talk about biodegradable PVC. Yeah? Vinyl chloride is a carcinogen.
Carcinogen.
Right. PVC is not a carcinogen.
Vinyl chloride.
It's a carcinogen. We should, therefore, real science required to take these decisions. Ma'am.
This is a really contentious issue of biodegradability. When we were making rules that biodegradable plastic, so many people were coming every day to us for including. But we took a conscious decision because we didn't know that biodegradable ultimately means what? People put little bit of some corn or something and it withers basically. And it withers and goes into the soil and contaminate there also. So ultimately it get converted into the microplastics, which is a big issue of problem. So biodegradability is a very, very big issue basically, but why we have included only the compostability, not the biodegradable plastic. So as such the government, I don't know, I haven't gone through this new notification carefully, but whether there any biodegradability they have included, because there was a conscious decision not to take inclusion of the biodegradability, only the compostable.
I completely agree with that. I think science, infrastructure, technology has to be ready.
Yeah.
To, so if we make, sometimes in naivety, if we are not looking at the life cycle approach, we can make problems worse.
Yeah.
And the microplastics issue, as ma'am absolutely rightly said, is a far bigger issue than having the plastics in soil.
Yeah.
Far bigger issue. Because its removability is impossible.
Yeah, we are sitting on a huge problem now. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I can just clarify one thing here. I am Mr. Vijay Kumar, President of the Karnataka State Polymer Association. See, the biodegradable, that word it should not be used now. Yeah. It is a compostable now. Yeah. In the new amendment rule, it is compostable.
Which is the right definition.
It is the right definition. Don't use the biodegradable. Compostable are the non-conventional plastics, which is done from all the food grades, whatever the corn, starch, whatever it is. So the question what he has raised has got no relevance to the recycling because compostable cannot go for recycling. Yeah. It is very clear even in the new rule. I think that is a different compostable facilities has to come. And as you rightly said, even it is not getting zeroed off to the volumes what we are consuming today.
Correct.
It takes a lot of years to replace to the conventional plastics. This is my clarification to the word you used. You should always use compostable now. Do not use biodegradable. It is a misconception. Yeah. It is giving a misinterpretation to the definition. Thank you.
But at the same time, the compostable plastics also, if it mixes with the normal plastic, it hinders the recyclability.
Correct.
So how do we have a separate systems for, because in the...
No, so I don't think... So compostable plastics should not form a part of the recycling chain at all.
So, but how do people differentiate and how do people come to know there has to be a separate collection system for compostable plastics?
Ma'am, I think what will happen is, you're absolutely right. I think when the problem comes, the solution will come. Yeah. Today, because it is not a problem, because the quantity is so small, it is not creating a problem. Tomorrow, when I see that it's actually creating a challenge from a recycling standpoint, a technology will come for identifying it. There will be some signature, a spectral signature, a density signature, some signature will be there. Maybe the biogenic origin, the non-fossil fuel origin in the plastic can be read through a sensor. In the last few years, the sensors have blown our mind in terms of the ability to spot things. So I'm sure that we'll find a method. I think unless I have not done a life cycle analysis of the again, the long-term environmental cost benefit. Somebody should do a long-term environmental cost benefit and then take decisions like this.
I think, I don't know, Madam must be updated actually. The MOFF is already doing the regulation. The composting, whatever the bags that are allowed in 2021 amendment rule, will be only allowed in the wet waste management because it can directly go to the landfill. Because they are now, DRDO has, with the Prime Minister initiative, DRDO Hyderabad has come out with the product which can get composted from 45th day onwards.
They just completely went everywhere.
45 days, because 180 days is the CPET regulation for final end of the life of that compostable bag. But now from 45 days itself, it will start composting, and they've already recommended to the local bodies and to the pollution control boards to allow it only for the usage in the wet waste, which our state, as a Karnataka state, it is already getting implemented. The rules will be, in very near future, it will be rolled out. They will be allowing only in the wet waste. They will not allow it in the other primary packaging. They will not allow the compostable.
And
Since
for
you have raised that point,
agriculture also they
yeah,
will
whatever it is, because conventional plastic, if it is getting mixed, then the recyclers will have a problem of identifying it. That is the biggest challenge, what conventional and compostable is going to have it in the next coming years. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, correct. So I think the coding, classification, color, etc. I'll be happy when this issue becomes a big problem. I'll be happy because then we have progressed as a country. Don't let it happen. I'm grateful, sir.
Carry bags to be used for the food grade packaging, because 2018 FSSAI packaging, it very clearly states that it should not be used in the food packaging direct contact. But this, the amendment they have done without going into the 2018. They have gone into 34 of 2006,
Correct.
which is the wrong move by the MOEF.
No, so that's why I said that my submission is that I do not know about DRDO's innovation, but CPET, CPET is a partner for us in polymer technology. And my understanding was that it takes 6 weeks for biodegradation to start, and up to 2 years for biodegradation to get completed. So again, it is biodegradable is such an amazing term. You know, it means different things to different people. And you have to go into the science to see. Today, it is not really a problem. And I'm sure, you know, with the quantities going up, a solution will come.
Wow.
Marked with compostable plastic. How do we know? They do not mention even the certification from the CPCB. So this is again a big problem. Compostable articles, and in the single-use plastic also compostable articles, compostable plastic has been excluded. So now people will start.
So again, it is extended producer responsibility of a different type. Mislabeling and no sir. There is in the West, including eco leaders like United States. United States is not a real eco leader. If you mislabel your product, you go in, and it's a criminal charge. This is mislabeling. Large number of paper products are being labeled as recycled, having X percentage. Large number of plastics are being labeled. Again, what are we doing? We are harming our own industry, our own brand.
So Masood, I think very important for this to really get into. I don't want you to be very happy on this because it will lead to a lot of problems there. I think so before the compostable is being introduced, you see we are in an economy, as you rightly said so, that we are informal sector is playing an important role in our whole segregation, sorting, transportation, whatever we say. And you very rightly said that in your 2 minutes which you were trying to say. I think so compostable plastic before is introduced, like madam and what the gentleman is saying, the government has to really come up with a system, because the informal sector cannot read. They can't read. How will they differentiate whether it goes to wet or it goes to dry? The use of compostable plastic becomes a challenge when it is really introduced without any different color coding. That will also take huge amount of publicity. If we have to say that, okay, light pink color will be the compostable plastic and that pink color will not be used in the other form of packaging. So these sort of, it's not a issue which is going to be solved in day one.
You're right, sir.
I think
Took 5 years
it's a great challenge.
No, 5 years for the biomedical industry to understand color coding of biomedical waste. It took 5 years. So I'm sure it will take even longer here, but I'm sure with the guidance of my seniors here, we will be able to evolve solutions. You're right, maybe the time to act is now. We should not wait. Point well noted, sir. Point well noted.
Okay, clapping now.
So, thank you so much, Mr. Masood Malik, for your engaging, commendable presentation. It's been quite enlightening. And I would request Mr. Amit Purohit, who is a founder of APIC, to present memento to Mr. Malik as a token of thanks. And we would like to mention here that Mr. Malik has also been involved in advising Government of India, including the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and the Central Pollution Control Board, and Niti Aayog on policy, legislation, and technical aspects, including regulatory framework, standard, and SDGs. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being part of this session. So we'll have another presentation after this. We'll have Ms. Maggie Lee, who is lead plastic program from Vera. She would be talking to us on how can plastic credits help EPR, and after her presentation, we'll have presentation by Mr. Rahul Poddar on EPR landscapes, role importance of EPR stakeholders. Mr. Rahul Poddar is MD, the Shakti Plastic Industries. So we'll have a presentation by Ms. Maggie Lee, lead plastic program, Vera. She is a lead plastic program. Maggie oversees the strategy, direction, and evolution of Vera's plastic waste reduction program, which aims to enable robust impact assessment of new or scaled up plastic waste collection and recycling project.
Thank you.
Okay, over to you.
Thank you
Michael.
for the kind introduction. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And it's great to hear everyone debating so passionately about how we can actually help India's EPR program. This conversation is very uncanny in terms of how similar it is with the conversations we've had all over Southeast Asia when this was also the hit topic. Across Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Malaysia, we've had very similar, very passionate, very enthusiastic crowds who actually want to contribute their comments on how bioplastics, how different types of single-use plastics, how compostable plastics can come into play. And so I'm very happy to actually share with you today, not just on what the Vera Plastic program is, but also on a little bit of my journey on how we actually got to this point when I find that plastic credits is actually really the ultimate solution to help not just EPR, but to actually restart recycling and also ask corporations to take on the rightful responsibility once again. So a little bit about myself is that in many different icons, this is my career in a nutshell. I started off working for Nestle and Procter & Gamble for a total of 8 years. I was research and development and also new product development in these two larger conglomerates from US and also from Switzerland. They, as you know, produce many of the products that we eat in India today, and that many of these products are also used in our household and personal care categories. On the right-hand side, you see Aeon, which is a Japanese supermarket. They're the #1 retailer in Japan, and they're also emerging in Southeast Asia and different parts of Asia. And the bottom two, I probably don't need to say more. I was previously employed as the United Nations Environment Program's coordinator for the Southeast Asia initiative on plastics and marine litter. And that I've just recently left the United Nations Environment Program earlier this year and joined Vera. Before at the United Nations, I was actually at the World Wildlife Fund, or the Worldwide Fund for Nature, as the rest of the world calls it. The panda logo is very familiar with many of you. It is the leading environmental organization of the world. So if you look at all these 5 logos, what do they have in common? It is really the plastic problem. Each one of these organizations are linked up in this plastic problem, and many of us are actually looking for solutions together. And these 5 entities all have the same stakes as in how they can actually come up with the best solution to actually eradicate plastic pollution. How can we actually come up with plans so that we can actually have plastic circularity? Instead of saying plastic is bad, how can we come together to see how we can use plastic more wisely? As many of my fellow speakers beforehand have mentioned, plastic is a great item. It's a great material. How can we use it better? And how can we actually leverage the fact that it is so durable in a good way, so that the fact that it is durable is no longer its Achilles heel? Because plastic in a vacuum is such a great packaging material to have. As a previous R&D person in Nestle and P&G, I can tell you that it is lightweight, it is oil-proof, it is air-proof, waterproof, and also it can be made into so many different types of materials so that it could be flexible, malleable, it could be soft, hard, colored, it could be printed. There are so many different great things about plastic. And that's also why I want to start with this tone, is that we understand what is good about plastics. And now, these few years, we actually have grown to know what's bad about plastic as well. How can we actually leverage the good parts of plastic while managing the bad parts of plastic as well? So before I begin into my conversation, I would like to actually also once again acknowledge that I'm calling in from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada today, which is the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish, the Musqueam Indian Band, and also the Squamish Nations of Canada. So just to quickly get us started is that I would like to actually show you this video. Let me try to share my screen with you so that you can hear the sounds.
12 million tons of plastic, the equivalent of the weight of over 20,000 A380 jets, are estimated to end up in the oceans every year. As a result of overproduction, the underlying take, make, dispose model of the economy, and inadequate waste management. How can we tackle the plastic pollution crisis? Within its value chain, a company should eliminate and minimize unnecessary plastic, design packaging for reuse and recycling, opt for more sustainable materials, and improve end-of-life management. Even in the best scenario, where a company employs all of those strategies, it will still have unavoidable plastic waste leakage. To compensate for the plastic pollution they cannot yet prevent, companies can invest in extended producer responsibility schemes and plastic credits projects. An EPR scheme is a policy approach where producers are held responsible for the costs of end-of-life management of their products or packaging. EPR schemes have positive effects up and down the value chain, making them an ideal tool to push the economy towards circularity. However, they can take many years to design and successfully implement. That's when plastic credits enter the scene. Plastic credits are transferable units representing a specific quantity of plastic that has been prevented from entering the environment through collection and/or recycling. Projects that generate plastic credits can jumpstart and complement EPR schemes by driving funds towards circular infrastructure. Plastic crediting is an innovative financial tool that can bring investment into plastic waste collection systems and new recycling ventures. This new form of finance can also drive social and environmental improvements through the value chain. For example, they support local economies, provide living wages for waste pickers, and generate new job opportunities. Plastic credits must be generated from new, additional activities in order to guarantee investment in increased collection and recycling capacity. Transparent reporting, monitoring and independent auditing of waste management and recycling systems are all key components of credible plastic crediting. What comes next? Civil society, businesses and governments working together on plastic credits is one way to bring increased capacity and accountability to waste management projects. Global cooperation to increase the circularity of plastic is crucial. We can all be part of the change. Find out more at RRR Initiative.
Thanks for being patient throughout the video. And so with this video, I'd like to also let you know that the RRR Initiative is also an initiative led by Vera as well. We are the secretariat of that multi-stakeholder cross-sectoral collaboration. I'd like to move on to the next slide. Sorry.
12 million tons of plastic.
So just a brief overview about what I'm going to talk about in my session here is that I'll introduce to you what Vera is and what we do, and also talk about why we're actually working on plastics right now. There are two fundamental items that I'd like to discuss with you today. One is the guidelines for corporate plastic stewardship. If your company is one of the companies that need to actually be looking at EPR, this is really the opportunity for you to actually get free resources on how to actually mitigate your plastic footprint. The second one is the most important of all, is also the reason why I'm here today with you, is the plastic waste reduction standard, which is the plastic program that Vera has and the one I'm leading right now. This is the one that's generating the plastic credits that you may be interested in. So a little bit about Vera and why this organization is that Vera is leading the world's leading voluntary carbon crediting program. It's called the Verified Carbon Standard, the VCS program. It's been around since 2007. We have over 1,007 projects across the world that are actually being issued credits for up to about 721 million credits at this point and counting. So the plastic program is Vera's newest standard. We have 5 other different standards aside from the VCS standard, and that the Vera plastic waste reduction standard is the newest one. We only launched this in end of February of this year, and that's also why it's a completely brand new standard that actually will contribute to the overall plastic crediting scene. We're very happy and excited to actually share with you today how this actual standard can help with the EPR system in India. First of all, why is Vera working on plastics? As we know, and also as the video has mentioned, EPR schemes are great, but they take many years to actually run smoothly. For the ones in Britain and also the one in Germany, these ones are looked up to as the ones that are almost like the poster child, almost like the best case example for all of the EPR programs that precede that follow them to look up to. The one in Sweden as well. These 3 countries have in common that they took many years for the EPR scheme to actually run smoothly and to generate profit, that it becomes a financially self-sustaining system, and that the packaging recovering organizations and also any type of organizations that's feeding into the EPR financially is actually gaining in return. So this is actually a long process. We're only in the beginning here in India. And of course, as some of our previous speakers have mentioned, only at maximum about 15% of global plastic is actually being recycled. What makes us feel that this is going to change now? Because we know that recycling is dwindling across the world. With COVID-19 limiting logistics and also restricting movement, this number is actually decreasing as we speak. And we know that waste is often actually recovered by informal workers, as I've mentioned in the previous panel discussion. There's quite a lot of those in India and also where I'm usually based in Southeast Asia as well. So where I usually based in Thailand, in Southeast Asia, more than 55% of the waste from metropolitan Bangkok is being recovered by informal workers, which means that the municipality government saves a lot of money by actually depending on these folks who are just picking waste to support their livelihoods. And so for us to look into all these different problems, there's one thing that actually catches Vera's eye, is that the crediting system can help with each one of these problems. So the beginning of our journey starts off with actually combining forces with many of these entities. As we see here on this screen, we have Nestle, we have McKinsey.org, which is the foundation arm of McKinsey, the consulting firm. We have Conservation International, known environmental NGO. We have Danone, which is also like Nestle, a food manufacturer and a global conglomerate. Tetra Pak, which is actually something that you must have actually used at one point in your life. They are the laminate and multi-layer food packaging material that allows for aseptic packaging of food materials. And then, of course, Veolia, which is actually a waste management firm. And also quite a lot of different entities like South Pole Systemic and also Natural Capital Partners and Lloyd's Register, who combine forces with us to have this multi-sectoral, cross-sectoral, multi-stakeholder relationship that's called the Triple R initiative. When we look at the Triple R, we think about reduce, reuse, and recycle. Sometimes we know that the reuse mechanism is not possible, especially with fast-moving consumer goods. The packaging is a single-use item. They cannot be reused. So that's also why the Triple R initiative now looks at recover as the second R. We're looking at minimizing plastic waste from the point of view of a manufacturer, which is exactly what we're talking about with EPR. The product that they produce at the Triple R initiative is this one that you're looking at in the screen right now. It's the Guidelines for Corporate Plastic Stewardship. This is something I wish I had when I was working as the Asia Pacific lead for sustainability at Procter & Gamble. If I had this tool, I would actually have a much easier job at P&G. So what this is, it is actually a guideline for those of you in the audience who are actually looking at, as a manufacturer, how can you cover your extended producer responsibility? The guidelines include how to establish and achieve net circularity commitments, how to calculate and manage your total plastic footprint, which I will go into in detail later, and also how to mitigate it through your within value chain activities, which is what you can do in your factories and your plants, and also by EPR schemes and plastic credits. This guideline is free for everyone to use, and I'm happy to share my presentation with the organizers. If they can share that with you, that would be great. The website is available on the screen right now, and you can actually access the guidelines through this website as well. So this guideline actually, in a nutshell, does this formula. Total footprint plus mitigation activities equals leadership commitments. What does this mean? Total footprint, as we can imagine, much like carbon footprint, is what we use. Is that correct? Well, that's half correct, because deliberate plastic use is a big part of total plastic footprint. However, we should also consider our leakage, because we now know that marine litter is not a problem that's always caused by deliberate littering. A lot of times it's caused by leakage, which is not deliberate, which is something that we're reluctant to have. But every system, like any type of waste management system or any system in the world, has downfalls. It has inadequacies. No system is 100% efficient. And therefore, even when we have the best waste management systems, there will still be leakage no matter how much we do not prefer it. So that's why total footprint is the combination of plastic use, which is deliberate, and also plastic leakage. Second item is that there are mitigation activities that all of us as packaging manufacturers, as manufacturers of different types of products, can undertake at our local facilities, meaning that you can actually have within value chain efforts. And I will go into detail about that in the next slide. The next item we have is plastic credits, which is really what I'm doing with you here today is to discuss how can plastic credits become one of those important components in terms of how you mitigate your activities, or how do you actually mitigate your plastic footprint. At the very end, we have extended producer responsibility. India is very blessed to actually have the next stage ready with the extended producer responsibility. This means that India has much more potential in solving the plastic problem ahead of many other countries in the world. And so I applaud India for actually having this in place such an early time compared with different parts of Asia. In Southeast Asia, there are no running extended producer responsibility plans. We know that Singapore is ready to actually come up with theirs. They're saying that they're ready by 2022 to 2025. There is a 4-year interval in which that they will implement their EPR system. At the very end, this is really what we're looking for as manufacturers and also as producers, is that what can we say to consumers? How can we say that we are already, we are demonstrating the perfect balance in terms of mitigating our plastic footprint and also making sure that the rest of the footprint is covered by plastic credits? Well, we have come up with 3 different options, which are the different combinations of covering your total footprint, either the plastic use part or the leakage part, or both, meaning that you actually achieve net circularity when you have already applied whatever recycled plastic you can into your value chain, and covered the rest of the part that you cannot convert into recycled plastic by the purchases of plastic credits. And therefore, these claims would be valid, and also at the end of the day, they can be traceable, and that they can have a very good bookkeeping practice for your organization. So the guidelines in general create that framework so that you can actually establish your footprinting. This I've already established. The next part is to ensure that you establish a credible plastic waste reduction leadership commitment, just as the ones that I've mentioned earlier. And I also promise you that I will talk about the within value chain mitigation activities. These activities are no rocket science. All of you in the audience today must know at least a few of these, if not all of them. As a person who was working for Nestle and Procter & Gamble in product development, we understand this very perfectly, is that no organization is willingly putting extra plastics so that we have more weight to ship. We always understand that the art of lightweighting is really the golden rule. However, why is there still so much plastic that we cannot prevent? Well, there are multiple reasons. Some of the plastic that we have in place are for convenience purposes. Others are maybe for luxury purposes. Imagine if you're holding up 2 bottles of shampoo, one bottle being much more lightweight than the other, and it feels flimsy, and that the print is actually smudged. And the other one looks hard and durable, and the printing is nice looking. The colors are vibrant. If you hold up both bottles of shampoo and that these 2 bottles are of the same price, which one will you buy? Well, the answer is very obvious, isn't it? You'll probably buy the one that looks nicer. And that's also why a lot of times plastic manufacturers or manufacturers for packaging will not actually lightweight to the maximum degree that their product needs protection of. So in this diagram, we actually listed in a reverse pyramid or inverse pyramid how actions within the value chain would work for a manufacturer. First, we want to actually redesign for reduction, meaning that we want to design our product so that it doesn't need extra plastics to sustain it, and that we can design it for reuse wherever applicable, and also design it so that it's actually easier to recycle. Sometimes we can have easy to remove labeling, and other times we can have, for example, for printer cartridges, they can be removed so that they can be disassembled into different materials, and that the metal parts and the plastic parts can be separated so that they can be recycled respectively. Next, we do have the increase of recycled content of products. In my earlier discussion, we've mentioned that food manufacturers have a tough time finding recycled content so that they can actually have food contact or food grade material packaging that's made out of recycled plastic. This is still very much the case across the world. We understand, one of my previous fellow speakers mentioned that India will not pay a premium to actually buy more expensive recycled plastic. And that is very true, not just for India, but for the rest of the world as well. We know that the recycled plastic can sometimes be more expensive than virgin plastic. And that is also why increasing recycled content is difficult in a financial sense and also in a practical sense. And of course, the next 2 is actually what I'm here to talk about with you today, the beyond value chain investments, which includes increasing collection of plastic waste and also increasing recycling of plastic waste. But then you're thinking, I'm a manufacturer for, let's say, a food product. I'm not good at collecting or recycling waste because that is out of my niche. And that is why extended producer responsibility schemes exist, is so that we can transfer the cost from the final consumer of your product to actually take care of the collection and recycling of that specific piece of packaging that he or she has bought. So that is also why that beyond value chain investments actually are very much the key matter here, is that how efficient are we when we jumpstart the extended producer responsibility scheme, and whether or not there would be existing models or existing projects in India that we can already look up to. Well, this is also why plastic credits exist. So Vera, aside from the RRR initiative that I've mentioned just earlier, are a standalone NGO as well. And we've created the Plastic Waste Reduction Standard, which is a crediting standard by Vera. So in this diagram, you can see how basically the plastic credits work. Just like carbon credits, which maybe you're familiar with, it is generated by projects that are separate from what the buyer of the credits are doing. So let's say if I'm a food manufacturer, let's use that example again. I'm a food manufacturer who wishes to accomplish the collection of the same plastic waste in volume as the plastic packaging that I'm producing today. I'm producing 1 million bottles. I would like to collect 1 million bottles. Well, before this, there was no good way of doing it. Now with EPR and plastic credits, there are much more transparent and traceable ways that you can ensure that whatever money you pay for the collection of the plastic waste, you do have that actual impact done. So plastic credits is really such a thing, is that when plastic projects collects or recycles plastic waste from the environment, they get credits. And these credits are being audited and being assured and verified by standard setters like ourselves, and also auditors, which are third-party auditors. They can be they work the same way as your accounting auditors. They verify whether or not these numbers are correct according to the book and also according to the transactions as well. So there are two types of credits, as you see in this diagram. There's the waste collection credits, and so there's also the waste recycling credits. Every type of plastic has a different type of recyclability, and recyclability is decided upon when the recycler is willing to take back the plastics. If it's not being taken back, it's not recycled, and therefore the recyclability is down to zero at this point. So that's also why we're being very realistic here in saying that when plastic is collected from the environment or makeshift dump sites, or even from curbside collections, if it is a project that's eligible for credits, they can get waste collection credits. However, some of these plastic may not be recyclable. And that's also why not every single piece of those plastics that are collected can be eligible for waste recycling credits. Only those that are eventually recycled would be. And the ones that are not eligible for the recycling credits must go to a safe and designated end-of-life destination. So these are all outlined in the methodologies that are in the Vera plastic waste reduction standard. Now on to how plastic credits can help you as a manufacturer or as a company that needs to actually fulfill your EPR responsibilities, is that Vera issues plastic credits for these eligible projects that you already have now heard of. They're either collecting or recycling or both of plastic waste. Next, these plastic credits can be sold to the buyers. They could be yourselves. They could be an individual like myself. If I feel that I want to take care of my plastic footprint, I can also buy plastic credits. But this is much less likely to be the case at the moment. And then Vera plays the role as being the insurer of the standard and the methodology to ensure that they are robust, to make sure that the collection and the recycling projects are occurring in the right way, in that it's actually benefiting the environment and also all the communities involved. In my earlier panel discussion, I did mention that the informal sector is crucial and one of the pillars supporting India's waste management system. And they also help recycle quite a lot of the waste as well. And so that Vera ensures that these projects are providing a living wage and also providing opportunities for such individuals in the informal sector to ensure that their livelihoods are protected. And afterwards, the Vera registry that has all these different projects listed will actually show you how many credits they've generated over the period of time. And that the buyers, meaning the manufacturers or also the companies, can purchase these credits from these projects. By providing them with money, these projects have the opportunity to continue their business or even to scale up. Maybe they can collect or recycle more next year because now they're selling the plastic credits to you as a manufacturer who buys these plastic credits. So what are the objectives and benefits of having such a standardized plastic credit system? Well, first, we understand that there's a robust impact assessment, meaning that when the third-party auditors are at the project space looking at what these project proponents are doing, they ensure that these circumstances are according to the Vera standard. And these are very stringent standards. Secondly, we address the social risk. As mentioned, we ensure that there's no child labor. We ensure that there are opportunities for employment if employment is actually being taken off the informal sector or any of the waste pickers, so that the project proponent can generate new opportunities for them. And next, we know that this funding goes directly back into the recycling and collection activities so that they can benefit from having this extra financial flow. So many of these are sometimes operating as charities at this point. Some of them are for profit. So either way, when they can generate plastic credits, these credits could be sold so that the money that goes back, that's spent in purchasing these credits could be provided for them so that they can maintain their activities. Also, another extra benefit is that when these projects recycling plastics scale up, you do have a better chance of actually getting a quality recycled feedstock, meaning that the recycled plastic that comes out of these projects may have a much higher quality because they're so regulated, and that each type of plastic that they're collecting is perhaps specified by the project proponent. This also may be a precursor for closed loop recycling, which is when one PET bottle goes back into making one PET bottle. It does not go into making anything else, and it's only coming from bottles, so that it's actually coming from the exact same type of product. It's called a closed loop recycling model. We're hoping that plastic credits can also give rise to such a mechanism, so that in places where segregation of plastic waste does not already exist, some places, for example, like India, and also where I live in Thailand, there's no segregation of waste stream. We've gone into a very heated discussion about how bioplastics and different types of plastics require their own schemes and own streams of collection. And this, however, is not going to happen in the near future. So how can we increase the quality of a recycled feedstock? Well, this is one of the ways. And next, of course, we enable the circularity claims that the corporations were trying to make. They can now say that they're net circular by covering the footprint that they cannot convert into recycled plastic consumption by buying plastic credits from these reliable sources. And at the end of the day, this impact is transparent in reporting and also verified, meaning that in annual reports of these corporations, they can state exactly how many plastic credits they bought from which geography, from which project, doing what types of activities. Is it recycling, or is it collection, or is it both? And how much their plastic footprint has been covered by in-value chain mechanisms and also beyond value chain investments in plastic credits and EPR. So there could be a very good way to actually report their impact either in their annual report or in some sort of report that's regulated by their stock markets, or in a sustainability report that they wish to produce. And these quality assurance principles, as mentioned before, are extremely important, because how are we to know that a beach cleanup is not selling another manufacturer maybe like 1,000 kilograms of waste plastic of equivalence of waste plastic, and also selling it to another manufacturer? There's really no way to tell. And so with a good standard and also with a good registry system, there is a way to ensure that you are the buyer of that impact and the sole buyer of that impact, meaning that once you pay off that plastic credit that you're buying, that plastic credit is yours to claim, and that no one else is actually claiming that specific portion. So that if we all combine our forces to look into the plastic footprint that's generated in India, and that we say we're covering all that footprint by buying plastic credits, technically India will be net circular if we can actually ensure that all these different credits are sold to sole buyers, not double sold. So this type of impact being real and also being measurable, being additional, meaning that it's actually bettering the status quo. It is not just business as usual. It is actually fulfilling more than what's business as usual. Making collection and making recycling a boosted activity is actually what we mean by additional. And also conservatively estimated, it is not exploding or expanding or being inflated in terms of the figures. The figures are actually estimated according to past records. And also in terms of records, it is also audited, so that the third-party auditors would travel to these different projects to ensure that these activities are exactly as they were depicted. Uniquely numbered, meaning that the credits are now traceable. You can actually go back into which exact credits have these corporations bought. And also at the very end, it's being transparently listed. The Vera registry, which I will show you in a second, is actually open for public browsing. Anyone can access this registry to see how many credits or what projects are generating these credits. So in this diagram, or in this slide, I'm showing you the Vera registry, which you can access today now at registry.vera.org. It shows you all the projects that are listed under each one of our programs. And as mentioned, the plastic waste reduction program is one of them. So because our program is relatively new, we don't have too many projects listed with us at this point. But we do have quite a lot that are actually now looking into the pipeline of being registered. Some of you I know sit in the audience today with us, and I thank you for your interest in Vera. So we do have many projects that are now looking to register with us, and that as soon as they're registered, their names will show up in this list below in the registry, so that different types of buyers and entities, organizations could browse the Vera registry to see what registered projects are generating what types of impact in which parts of the world. So together, the very robust and stringent accounting methodologies ensuring that the figures are correct and audited. And at the same time, the independent auditing that is actually conducted by a third-party auditor that you hire for the Vera plastic standard. And below, the registry system that is independently controlled by Vera. Altogether, these three factors constitute the pillars of the Vera plastic waste reduction standard that is the most robust and also ensures that the impact is actually verified across the world. So putting everything together in a nutshell is that the guidelines for corporate plastic stewardship that the RRR initiative has created, it outlines exactly what corporates should do to find their total plastic footprint, to mitigate their plastic footprint, and also to come up with commitment strategies. They can claim net circular plastic if they wish to, if they can actually have all those actions accomplished. Next, it is the plastic waste reduction standard that projects must register with so that they can generate these standardized plastic credits, and that the corporations that are now ready to purchase plastic credits can do so through the projects that are now listed with the plastic waste reduction standard, so that they can purchase these plastic credits. And ultimately, they can already fulfill some of the corporate's net circularity commitments that they have claimed before. So this is really a very simple way that Vera has actually created the solution for all of us to adopt. So about the projects across the world, as you see in this map here, we have quite a lot of projects. It already started in 2020. This is in the piloting phase before Vera's plastic standard was launched in February this year. There are many of the projects that are collecting and sorting plastic waste from beaches, villages, schools, and landfills. Many of them are financial incentives or technological incentives that actually help these different projects to scale up and sometimes to actually better the status quo, meaning that they're being additional. And they also support the informal collectors and recycling agents in the vicinity. Sometimes they connect the entities in recycling supply chains to establish a locally integrated economy. They can be in a very small town, in a remote area where there's local collection and recycling happening on the spot. And there's a very wide spectrum of these projects available. Now we have over 50 projects varying in size that are in dialogue. And I know some of the project proponents that I've invited to today are listening to this conversation right now, and I thank you for coming. So these different projects are all in dialogue with Vera to see how they can register with the program and have plastic credits issued under their projects. The development for Vera in the next steps is for us to actually, after our launch in February this year, is that we're answering the overwhelming responses and inquiries from eligible projects. These projects are looking to register with Vera, and that once they register with Vera, they know that there will be an extra financial stream from selling the plastic credits. We're also undergoing EPR integration efforts with multiple PROs and also doing quite a lot of research with different entities in India and also across the world. We're really looking forward to see how we can integrate ourselves into the Indian market so that we can play a crucial part in the next in EPR as well. As we all know that in the EPR schemes, plastic credits is a very important component. Next steps for us in India is for us to establish partnerships with some of these entities to demonstrate how plastic credits can directly fulfill some of the requirements that's outlined in EPR of India. For example, we are looking at government agencies, eligible projects, project developers themselves, and also research institutions, non-governmental organizations or nonprofits, academia, manufacturers, and digital marketplaces to come together to work with Vera so that we can see how we can actually accentuate the extended producer responsibility schemes through the use of plastic credits. So now going into some of the frequently asked questions, I know many of you may have these questions as well. So we went ahead to actually try to answer them ahead of time. How can manufacturers leverage the plastic waste reduction standard that's run by Vera? Well, manufacturers can purchase the plastic credits that are issued by Vera to projects. So Vera do not directly sell these credits. These credits are being issued under the projects that are registered in the registry that I've shown you earlier, so that these projects can sell the manufacturers the plastic credits. Vera is the standard setter. We are the ones that are actually creating the standard. We're not involved in the sales of the standard because that would be a very big conflict of interest. Next is, are Vera's plastic credits available in India? Well, there are no geographical limitations on where plastic credits issued to projects can be sold. They can be sold anywhere in the world where it's legal to do so. Unless there's local regulations that state otherwise, at the moment, there aren't any known to us. You can buy plastic credits wherever you are. However, it is advisable for corporations wishing to actually purchase plastic credits to match their geography of their commercial footprint. Meaning that if I'm a company that actually sells my product mostly in, let's say, India and all the SAARC nations, I should consider buying the plastic credits coming from India and the SAARC nations as well, so that it's actually concentrating on the right geography and benefiting the right communities where I'm actually selling my products. And next is, how much does one plastic credit cost? How much are we looking at right here, right? And we know that the cost is actually very essential to all the different producers who are considering how to fulfill their EPR. One plastic credit represents 1 metric ton of plastic waste collected or recycled at Vera. It means that if you buy one plastic credit, you are already paying for the collection or recycling of 1 metric ton of plastic waste. So Vera is, again, we do not sell plastic credits. They can be bought in marketplaces, which I can show you a bit more later, and also directly from registered projects. There are registered projects that are on the Vera system that already have buyers lined up, meaning that there are buyers who will tell them that we want to buy your plastic credits. Please generate them and please have them in the Vera registry so that they can be traceable and verified. And depending on the type of the project, sometimes the project has a different sustainability label to it. They can be a women entrepreneurial project, or they can be a project that works on using schools as a collection mechanism, or empowering the local fishing villages across the coastline. There could be different types of projects, and that these different projects may sell their plastic credits at different prices. And so the current price range that we have heard of is usually from $150 to $400. And next is, how can I buy plastic credits issued by Vera to fulfill mandatory EPR requirements, which is the golden question that we're trying to answer here today. Well, Vera is engaging in pilot partnerships with many of the packaging recovery organizations, many of whom are listening from different parts of the world outside of India, from Malaysia, from Indonesia as well. Thank you so much for joining. Of these emerging EPR schemes in the world, they're also looking at engaging in piloting partnerships with us to see how we can integrate these two concepts together. Plastic credits are now a part of EPR scheme of India, meaning that India is one of the few countries that explicitly listed out that corporations can purchase plastic credits to fulfill the EPR. The other two that already have this tradable crediting scheme would be the United Kingdom and Poland. And of course, Vera is very eager to work with the Indian Central Pollution Control Board and also any of the authorities that are running the systems behind the EPR, and also local organizations to establish direct linkage of plastic credits with EPR. And the very end is that this is my contact information. If you have questions or if you have any comments about the plastic program that I just shared with you, or if you actually wishes to know more about the different types of plastic credits, please email me here.
Hello, can you hear us?
Hi. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It talked of many ends and many solutions. My one little query is that how you are building the inclusivity of the informal sector. You know, two major challenges which we are facing in India in the waste sector. One is when we are going towards a circular economy and we are coming with new extended producer rules and regulations. One of the issues which we are facing is the recycling industry is largely informal. There are some people sitting here who are the pioneers in the system. And these pioneers are very minuscule within the system which we are. What is your organization taking the steps in partnerships within the Indian organization? One, to see that how the informal recyclers are not lost out of this system and are brought into the fray of whether you call them registered or what sort of systems. That is question number one. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, I got your question number one.
Number two is about the other informal sector, which is the waste picker. So what is your view that how do we integrate this 4 million to 5 million informal sector workers only in the domain of plastics or dry waste? And when we cut across other sectors, which includes oils, used oils, or lithium-ion, or batteries, or solar is just a beginning thing, or in other streams of sectors of waste management, this 4 to 5 million will run to about 10 million or even more. So how do you see that what sort of steps need to be taken by the brand owners and producers and importers in order to really integrate them into the program? Thank you very much, please.
Thank you for your questions. So for your first question, as I mentioned earlier, and also as I showed you in my slideshow, we do have social safeguards for the people who are linked with plastic waste collection and also plastic waste recycling that are with our projects. So we understand that most of the people who are running the show are actually from the informal sector, and many of whom are actually women, especially. So in our standard, which is actually altogether over 300 pages long, it outlines exactly what project proponents must undergo in terms of having their social safeguards in place. The auditor that will come as a third-party auditor to ensure that the requirements have been met will also ensure that these social safeguards are in place. These social safeguards include that there are no people of underage of below 18 that are working in these projects, and that when employment opportunities are being closed down due to the project in the area that they're working in, they have to create extra employment activities so that these people can be employed as well. And a third is that whenever any worker that's employed by these projects, be them from the informal sector or they're actual just contracted individuals, that there has to be a living wage provided for these individuals, so that they're paid a fair wage. So these are some of the current safeguards that are in place in the Vera plastic standard. I'm also in dialogue with some of the indigenous rights groups that are telling me how to actually engage the local communities, as these communities are also looking at indigenous land rights where this collection may occur. And so there's quite a lot of movement going on in the communities, in terms of communities. We are trying to ensure that the projects that are registered with Vera are not taking away opportunities, but providing more opportunities and opening more doors. For your second question, quite a lot of these corporations that are talking to us are actually global conglomerates. These are massive companies that are looking to buy plastic credits to take care of the plastic footprint that they cannot take out. So as I mentioned, plastic will be with us for the next few years, to say the least. And so we know that there will be plastic footprint that no matter how much we want to reduce, cannot be reduced. And so if they are buying plastic credits, they're saying that they do want to enable certain geographies. Looking at the Indian subcontinent is actually something that almost every single global company is doing. India is known for its efficiency in recycling, and therefore we do see an opportunity for India to produce more plastic credits so that some of these players from the region can buy the ones that are actually generated in India for their leadership commitments, and also to ensure that their beyond value chain investments match their plastic footprint. So I do see a huge opportunity for Indian manufacturers to already purchase the locally generated credits, and also companies that are not based in India can also do so. And there's a very big market space in India right now.
Thank you very much.
I hope those answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I also would like to pursue this when you are talking of the recycling industry, the informal sector, with the regulators, because it's the state pollution control boards who need to be influenced in order to let in these recyclers, to understand them more proactively, constructively. And that's where you will play an important role. Like you are having your standards. If you can come up with these standards and share with these openly with the public at large, then it will be very helpful to the informal sector to really ensure that they are inclusive in the program. So like your standards become an influencing factor to the regulators. That's my point. So important to talk to the regulators rather than talking to the others. What is your view?
Great minds think alike. I very much agree with you.
Right.
That is also the process that we're going through right now, not just with India alone, but also talking with different governments across the world. They may be looking at a methodology that is already agreed upon by most of the garbage collectors and also of the waste recyclers as well. So because we have put together the methodology, not just by ourselves, but with a very large group of stakeholders coming from different sectors, that links up with the waste management system. We're very happy to tell you that these methodologies have been proven to work, and that even now that we have a very happy version of it, we're very happy with the current version. We're still trying to improve it as we speak. Right now, as I speak, we've just posted the public consultation for the landfill criteria revision, so that when plastic waste is collected and hopefully recycled, we still know that there will be a portion of it that's not recyclable. Not all plastic waste is recyclable. That is a sad truth. So what do we do with the rest, right? When we collect them, does it go back into makeshift dumps? So we do have a very strict protocol in place to ensure that these projects must dispose the extra plastic that's not recyclable at sanitary landfills. And we're now refreshing and revising that landfill criteria to make sure that they actually cater to the conditions that we see in India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and across the world, so that we're not asking for the impossible. We're asking for something that is practical and a continuous improvement for the local area.
Thank you very much, please.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. It was nice presentation. I have just a couple of questions regarding plastic credit, which we were talking about. First, you were saying about integration of EPR and plastic credit. As far as I understood from your presentation, that plastic credit for international community and any plastic credit which is registered from India can be procured in USA, or can anyone from Europe can procure. And Indian EPR is basically for India. So you are saying that there will be two credit, like one. For one recycling, you can trade two times, like one in international community and one in India for EPR. I hope you understood the question.
Thank you. I can see that it's Puneet from Nirmal Vasundhara, right?
Yeah, there is a second question.
Hi. Yes,
Yeah,
thank you. Very nice talking to you again after the panel. And also, we've linked up on email as well with your organization.
Yeah.
So the credits that under the Vera plastic waste reduction standard are uniform across, meaning that they actually are satisfying all the requirements laid forth for the registered projects. So if you are a registered project anywhere in the world, you can generate plastic waste credits, or plastic waste collection credits, or plastic waste recycling credits. So there are only these two kinds. It does not matter if it's actually generated for the sole purpose of satisfying the Indian EPR scheme, or if it is actually generated somewhere else completely irrelevant to India in that it's being bought by another party.
So it can be traded 2 times. If we are integrating it with Indian EPR, then it can be traded 2 times, just my understanding. And the second question is like Indian system is very much different than universal global. You say it is collection or recycling, it is very much different. So you people are, if you want to integrate EPR with plastic credit of Vera program, then you are willing to make separate rules and regulation for India, or it will be same all over the world?
To our understanding, there are very few actual regulations that are more stringent than what we have laid forth. It is also because we have been referencing the most stringent and robust ones across the world. And that is also why when we came up with the methodologies, the waste collection and waste recycling methodologies that apply in the Vera plastic waste reduction standard, we're referring to some of the hardest to actually achieve ways, so that the credits are actually very trustable and that they're verified to be real impact across the world. If we find that there's a way for us to actually do this in a much easier way, let's say if recycling is better 5 years down the road, is it possible for us to actually change this methodology so that it matches the current status? Yes, that is probably the case. However, are we going to come up with this a methodology for individual geographical regions? That is unlikely the case. However, we're coming up with different methodologies that fit different types of circumstances. So we're not talking about the geography of India in particular, but let's say if there is a type of model that India has, and it's a very unique model that has proven track record of impact, is it possible that we actually adopt a methodology that's being developed by Indian organizations? It is highly possible. We do have a mechanism for adopting externally developed methodologies so that the methodology developer actually gets a cut of the fees that we charge as well. So this is something that you can find on our website, and that all the things that I've talked about today can be found on our website as well. All 300 pages of our standard, and also the different types of requirements that you as a project developer or as any entity that's interested needs to look at.
Hi, Maggie. Thank you for the question answer session. Actually, we have few questions from few of our virtual attendees. So the first one is from Saharsh Reddy, and the question is like, do the Indian regulations and guidelines allow companies based in India to purchase EPR credits from the overseas?
Thank you. So according to what I've last seen in the 27-page guidance document, plastic credits is explicitly listed in the document. However, today my fellow speakers spoke of a new one that actually came out, I think yesterday or a few days ago. That specific one I have not looked at yet. I have not the opportunity to have a copy of. So I would actually not be able to say for certain that the Indian EPR system actually allows for the purchase of plastic credits that are under the Vera registered project, unless it is actually an India only project. This is what I can safely say by saying that if it is actually a project that specifies India as the only geography of where the plastic is collected or recycled, then there is a big chance that the Indian EPR system would take that as fulfillment of your EPR responsibility.
Thank you, Maggie. The second question is from Gaurav Kaul, and the question is like, how Vera is planning for Indian markets, especially for India, on plastic credits, and are there any projects, pilot projects in the pipeline? Thank you.
Thank you for asking. So we have been in conversation with multiple stakeholders. One of the project developers, whom I've also know that is on the call right now, thank you so much for joining, has already submitted their project description for registration with Vera. So if successful, we expect that they will be listed and registered with the Vera program very soon. And they are a very big project developer and local to India, and that their projects are also located in India. So it's a very exciting time for us because a project of this scale coming from India, a place where EPR is about to come into effect, is actually a very good turning point for all of us to experience how plastic credits can be something that is a very instantaneous gratification of that impact we want to see. We know that it takes a very long time for EPR to come into to operate smoothly. As the Germans did it in 30 years, they started launching their EPR system in the early 90s, and they keep changing it and changing it and changing it for the betterment of that program. But of course, it takes a very long time for us to find the sweet spot where we can say that everything is financially stable and that the environment is benefiting from. And so that's also why for instantaneous effect, plastic credits have already a proven track record. And we're hoping that the Indian projects would be able to help India right away.
Hi. Hi. Can you see
Hello.
me?
I can hear you, yes, and I can see you too. Thank you.
I represent one of the partner associations to this program. We are the Material Recycling Association of India, and we are working for plastic recycling. So we would like to collaborate with you, and we are an organization that is the apex body of recyclers in India, and we would like to work with you to explore opportunities to work.
I'll be very happy to link up with you and also your team. We would love to see how we can help fund your current endeavors, and if they are eligible, meaning that if they're additional and also traceable and auditable, there's a very high chance that you can actually generate plastic credits that you can sell and make money from.
I will send you an email where you can share your other contact details. Okay?
Please. Thank you so much.
Hi, Maggie. This is Rajesh from
Hello.
21st Century Polymers. We are a recycling company. Yeah, we are a plastic recycling company. And how do you check the total carbon footprint? I mean, if we are recycling, say, a particular quantity, and what is source of our energy we are using? Is it electrical, solar? So, is it? Do you consider all these things, or only the quantity we are using?
Thank you for raising that topic, because this is definitely two topics that are very close to heart. First, there's the carbon footprint. Secondly, there is also plastic recycling, which reduces the general plastic footprint of an organization that sponsors you. So Vera, as I mentioned, made our name in the carbon scene. And we are trying to put together a likely module or some sort of a linkage between our two programs, the plastic program and the carbon program, so that we can also make credits for any type of carbon emissions that are avoided or reduced. And so that if it is a company that actually wants a plastic credit that has a carbon theme or a carbon impact as well, they can purchase these credits specifically from project developers that are actually working on it. So we are trying to say that a 2-in-1, just like a shampoo and conditioner 2-in-1, usually has more benefits for the user in comparison to just a shampoo or just a conditioner. So this is something that we're trying to develop now. Can we have a carbon plus plastic 2-in-1 credit? And we're trying to create the methodology hopefully in the next season. And once it's out, Vera will announce it. So please stay tuned and please sign up for a newsletter, because the Vera, this NGO is actually really trying to produce more and more environmental impact quantifying programs. And so I really strongly recommend that you sign up for our newsletter, so that when our carbon plus plastic program or mechanism is out, that you'll be the first one to know.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just another question. If someone is, suppose we are recycling and getting EPR from producer, so still we can get these carbon credits?
Carbon credits are separate right now. So at Vera, we do have the VCUs, which are the units that we use as carbon credits. If we are to come up with that 2-in-1 strategy that I mentioned earlier, it is likely that eligible projects can have a plastic credit that has some sort of a carbon quantifier to it. It may be able to say that this is actually the equivalent of a certain volume of carbon. So we're not sure how this is going to work, but we're developing that right now as we speak. I hope that answers your question.
So thank you so much, Maggie, for your presentation, and it's indeed a pleasure having you in this conference. And
thank
before
you.
we have lunch break, I would like to announce that Vera is a gold sponsor for this conference and is a global leader helping to tackle the world's most intractable environmental and social challenges by developing and managing standards that help the private sector, countries, and civil society achieve ambitious, sustainable development and climate action goals. Whereas global standards and frameworks serve as linchpins for channeling finances towards high-impact activities that tackle some of the most pressing environmental issue of our day. Vera was founded in 2007 by environmental and business leaders who saw the need for greater quality assurance in voluntary carbon market. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Maggie.
Thank you, everyone.
So now we'll have lunch break, and after that we'll have another presentation by Mr. Rahul Poddar. Oh yes, that will be virtual. Yes.
Recording stopped.